A driver takes one look at a black woman in the rain, cancels her ride and drives away, then freezes in shock when he learns she built the app that pays his bills and can end his job with a click. Rain fell in sheets across San Francisco that evening. The famous city lights bounced off puddles that grew larger by the minute. People hurried along the sidewalks, hunched under umbrellas or with jackets pulled over their heads. The weather didn't match Silicon Valley's sunny image, an image of progress, innovation, and equal opportunity for all. But sometimes, appearances can be deceiving. Inside the Gleaming Horizon Conference Center, hundreds of tech professionals mingled. They sipped expensive drinks and talked excitedly about the future of transportation. Screens around the room displayed sleek, self-driving cars and colorful graphs showing growth predictions. The air buzzed with the energy of brilliant minds. Inside the center of a small group stood Marcus Chen. At 36, he had the confident smile of someone who belonged there. His designer suit and perfect haircut screamed success. As co-founder of Ride Connect, the fastest-growing ride-share app in the country, he had every reason to feel proud. The neural mapping system we've developed allows our app to predict user needs before they even open their phones, Marcus explained to the impressed crowd. But I can't take credit for that particular breakthrough. He gestured to a woman standing slightly behind him. That was all Amara's doing. Amara Washington nodded politely but didn't step forward. At 34, she had the sharp, focused eyes of someone who solved problems for a living. Her simple black dress was professional, but not flashy. Nothing about her appearance screamed tech genius, which was exactly how Marcus preferred it. Amara handles our back-end systems, Marcus continued, deliberately vague. What he didn't say was that Amara had actually co-founded Ride Connect. Her coding brilliance had built the platform from scratch, but their marketing team had decided early on that having Marcus and their other white partner as the public faces would attract more investors. Amara checked her watch. I should head out. The Goldman meeting is in 40 minutes. Marcus frowned. You're sure you don't want me there? These investor guys can be tough. I've handled tougher, Amara said with a small smile. Besides, someone needs to finish up here. As Amara walked away, Vanessa Rodriguez watched from across the room. The tech journalist had been following Ride Connect's rise for months. Something about the company's story didn't add up. Vanessa had sources suggesting Amara was far more than just back-end support. As a Latina reporter, Vanessa had made it her mission to uncover the invisible contributions of women and minorities in tech. She slipped her recorder into her bag. She'd try to catch Amara outside. Derek Miller wiped condensation from his car window and sighed. 6 months in San Francisco, and he was still barely making rent. Back home in rural Ohio, people had warned him the city was expensive, but he hadn't truly understood until now. At 29, Derek had expected more from his life. His degree in business administration hadn't led to the office job he'd hoped for. Now, he drove for Ride Connect 12 hours a day, shuttling tech workers who made more money in a week than he did in a month. His phone pinged with a new ride request. Derek tapped the screen to accept, then checked the passenger's information. Name, Amara W. Pickup, Horizon Conference Center. Destination, Financial District rating, 4.9 stars. Derek squinted at the tiny profile picture. A young black woman with natural hair. Something uncomfortable shifted in his stomach. He'd had a bad experience last week with a passenger from that part of town. The guy had been rude, made a mess, and left a 1-star review when Derek asked him not to eat in the car. Derek knew it was wrong to connect those dots, But years of media stereotypes and growing up in a town with almost no diversity had shaped his thinking in ways he rarely examined. Outside the conference center, Amara stood under the small awning, trying to stay dry. The rain showed no signs of stopping. She pulled out her phone and opened the Ride Connect app, the very app she had built. A small car icon showed her driver was only 2 minutes away. A silver Honda Civic drove slowly past the entrance. Amara spotted the Ride Connect sticker in the window and stepped forward, raising her hand. The car slowed for a moment. Through the rain-streaked window, she saw the driver look directly at her. Their eyes met briefly. Then, inexplicably, the car accelerated and drove away. Amara stared after it, confused. She looked down at her phone just in time to see the notification. Driver has canceled. Finding a new match. Her shoulders tensed as understanding dawned. It wasn't the first time this had happened. Amara knew the statistics. Black passengers waited 35% longer for rides on the very platform she had created. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, the invisible genius behind Ride Connect, experiencing the discrimination her own creation made possible. All while heading to a meeting where she would have to fight twice as hard to be taken seriously by investors who would readily accept Marcus's word. Vanessa stepped out of the building just in time to see Amara's face as she processed what had happened. The journalist recognized that expression immediately, the quiet dignity of someone who had faced this particular disappointment many times before. The rain continued to fall as Amara requested another ride, straightened her shoulders, and prepared to keep fighting her battles on multiple fronts. Amara took a deep breath, trying to push down the familiar knot in her stomach. The rain soaked through her blazer as she waited for the next driver. Some emotions never got easier to handle, no matter how many times you felt them. She'd faced this before. The college professor who seemed surprised when she aced his coding test. The startup that hired her but made her sit in the back during investor meetings. The tech forums where her ideas received praise until users saw her profile picture. Her phone pinged with a notification. A new driver was 3 minutes away. This time, the car actually stopped. Amara climbed in, dripping water onto the seat. "Sorry about that," she said, gesturing to the wet spot. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, waved away her concern. "No problem at all. This rain is something else today." As they drove, Amara checked the time. She was going to be late. She sent a quick text to Marcus. "Driver cancelled. On my way now. Start without me." Marcus replied instantly. "No worries. Got it covered." Amara leaned back, closing her eyes. She thought about the first time she met Marcus 3 years ago at a hackathon. She'd built an algorithm that caught everyone's attention, including his. When he approached her about starting Ride Connect, she'd been excited. Finally, recognition for her skills. Then came the marketing strategy meeting. "Look, we need investors to take us seriously," Marcus had explained. "The data shows that having the right image matters. People expect certain things, faces, when they think of tech founders." The message was clear. She would build the platform. He would be its public face. At the time, she'd told herself it was a practical choice. She preferred coding to public speaking anyway. She could change the industry from the inside. Now, 3 years and millions of dollars later, she was still invisible. The car pulled up to a tall glass building in the financial district. A sign in the lobby listed Goldman Investments on the 11th floor. "Thanks for the ride," Amara said, stepping out into the rain again. "Good luck with your meeting," the driver replied. Amara smiled. I'm going to need it. Derek circled the busy downtown streets, scanning the sidewalks for his next passenger. After canceling that last ride, he needed to make up the lost fare. His phone buzzed. His roommate was asking if Derek could cover an extra $100 for rent this month. Great. Just what he needed. Derek had moved to San Francisco with big dreams. His business degree was supposed to be his ticket to success. Instead, he was living with 3 strangers in a cramped apartment and driving 12 hours a day just to make ends meet. A tall man in an expensive suit raised his hand, and Derek pulled over. Not a Ride Connect passenger, but he could make an exception. Can you take me to Union Square? The man asked, sliding into the back seat. Sure thing, Derek said, turning on the meter. Nice suit, by the way. Special occasion? Just closed a big deal, the man replied, his voice smug. Derek nodded, feeling the familiar mix of envy and resentment. All these tech people with their fancy jobs and 6-figure salaries, while he struggled to pay rent. After dropping off the businessman, Derek parked near a popular coffee shop where drivers often gathered between rides. He spotted Mike, another driver he sometimes chatted with. Rough day? Mike asked, noticing Derek's expression. Derek shrugged. The usual. Got a last-minute cancellation fee, at least. Let me guess. You saw the passenger and decided it wasn't worth the trouble? Mike gave a knowing smile. Derek felt a flicker of shame but pushed it away. Come on, you do it too. Don't pretend. Hey, it's just smart business, Mike said, lowering his voice. Some passengers are more trouble than they're worth. You can tell by looking at them. Exactly, Derek said, the uncomfortable feeling fading. I had this guy last week who trashed my car. 1-star review when I asked him to stop eating. Can't risk that again. What Derek didn't say was that the trouble passengers in his mind shared nothing with the rude man except skin color. He didn't examine why he'd canceled on Amara, but readily picked up the businessman in the nice suit. His phone pinged with a new request. A woman named Jennifer needed a ride from a nearby salon to Pacific Heights, an upscale neighborhood. The profile picture showed a smiling blonde woman. Derek accepted immediately. When he arrived, Jennifer was standing under an awning, sheltered. From the rain, she waved at him and hurried to the car. Thank you so much for coming quickly, she said, shaking water from her umbrella. I have an important dinner tonight. No problem at all, Derek replied with a warm smile. Happy to help. The investor meeting was already underway when Amara slipped into the conference room. Turkeys. Men in expensive suits sat around a large table. Marcus stood at the front, pointing to projected graphs on the wall. As you can see, our growth in the past quarter exceeded projections by 23%, Marcus was saying. He paused when he noticed Amara, giving her a small nod. Ah, here's our technical genius now. The investors turned to look at her. Amara noticed the subtle shift in their expressions, the slight narrowing of eyes, the automatic assessment. She'd seen it 100 times before. Sorry I'm late, she said, taking her seat. Transportation issues. A few chuckles around the table. Ironic for a rideshare company, one investor commented. Marcus smoothly continued his presentation, highlighting RideConnect's market position and growth potential. When he finished, he gestured to Amara. Now I'll let Amara walk you through our new technical features that will revolutionize the industry. Amara stood and connected her laptop to the projector. Her hands were steady even as her heart raced. This part, the code, the data, the problem solving. This was where she shined. Our new matching algorithm uses machine learning to improve. Wait times by 40%, she explained, showing complex but readable graphs. We've also improved back-end security protocols to protect user data. One investor, a gray-haired man named Richard, leaned forward. That all sounds very technical, but can you translate that into profit margins? Before Amara could answer, Marcus stepped in. What Amara's brilliant system means is that we can handle more rides with less downtime, directly increasing our revenue by an estimated 30% this coming year. Richard nodded, satisfied with Marcus's explanation rather than Amara's expertise. Sure. Pattern continued throughout her presentation. The investors directed technical questions to Marcus. When Amara spoke, they checked their phones or whispered to each other. Her ideas, the very backbone of the company, became real to them only when Marcus repeated them. After the meeting, the lead investor shook Marcus's hand firmly. Impressive stuff, Chen. We'll have the paperwork ready next week. He gave Amara a brief nod. Nice presentation. As the investors filed out, Marcus turned to Amara with a wide smile. We did it! 20 million in new funding! We did it? Amara asked quietly. Marcus's smile faltered. Come on, Amara. You know how these guys are. Old school. They need things packaged a certain way. And I'm not the right package. That's not what I meant. Marcus sighed. Look, you're brilliant. Everyone knows that. But maybe stick to what you do best. The code. Leave the presentations to me. Amara gathered her things. I need to get back to the office. Outside the conference room, Amara found Vanessa Rodriguez waiting in the hallway. Amara Washington? Vanessa approached, hand extended. I'm Vanessa Rodriguez with Tech Insider. I'd love to talk about your role at Ride Connect. Amara hesitated. You should speak to our PR team, or Marcus. I've heard Marcus's version plenty of times, Vanessa said. I'm more interested in yours, particularly about how you co-founded the company. Amara's eyes widened slightly. How did you... I do my research, Vanessa said. What I can't figure out is why someone who built such an incredible platform stays hidden in the shadows. Do you ever worry that by accepting this arrangement, you're reinforcing the very barriers you've had to overcome? The question hit Amara like a physical blow. Before she could respond, Marcus appeared at her side. Ah, Ms. Rodriguez, he said smoothly. Always a pleasure. If you want an interview, please contact our media relations team. He guided Amara away, but Vanessa's words followed her down the hallway. Back at the Ride Connect office, Amara sat alone in her private workspace. The lights of San Francisco glittered below as night fell over the city. The rain had finally stopped. She pulled up a special program on her computer, one that only she knew about. For months, she'd been running private analytics on Ride Connect's user data. The results appeared on her screen in clear, colorful graphs. The patterns were undeniable. Black passengers waited 35% longer for rides. Latin passengers experienced 28% more cancellations. Asian passengers were 15% more likely to receive poor ratings for no clear reason. The company that Amara had built, her creation, was reinforcing the same discrimination she faced every day. Ride Connect's website proudly proclaimed, "Transportation equality for all." The data told a different story. Amara had identified the problem. Now she needed to fix it. She opened a new coding window and began to type. If the drivers could see passengers' faces and names before accepting rides, then she would change the system. She would redesign the algorithm to eliminate those early visual cues while still maintaining safety. But as she worked, another thought nagged at her. The code could help, but it wouldn't solve everything. The real problem went deeper. Long as she remained hidden, the invisible genius behind the platform, wasn't she part of the problem too? Vanessa's question echoed in her mind. Do you ever worry that by accepting this arrangement, you're reinforcing the very barriers you've had to overcome? Amara's fingers paused over the keyboard. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine stepping into the light, becoming the visible face of her own creation. The thought both terrified and energized her. Being visible meant being vulnerable. It also meant being powerful. She glanced at the photo on her desk, her grandmother standing proudly outside the school where she taught for 40 years, one of the first black teachers in her district. She hadn't hidden. She had shown up. Day after day, making space for others to follow. It's time, Amara whispered to herself. She saved her code and opened her email. She began to compose a message to the entire company leadership team. For 3 days straight, Amara barely left her office. Empty coffee cups surrounded her keyboard. Her eyes burned from staring at screens. But the work was worth it. She had built something that mattered. A new program that could detect patterns of discrimination in driver behavior. It could spot when drivers repeatedly cancelled on certain types of passengers. It could identify areas of the city where wait times were longer for minorities. Best of all, it could fix these problems in real time. Amara named it the Fairness Protocol. You've been here all night again, haven't you? Marcus stood in her doorway, holding a fresh coffee cup. Amara took the coffee with a grateful nod. It's ready. The board meeting is at 2 now. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. About that. Are you sure this is the right approach? We could make these changes quietly. That's the problem, Amara said firmly. We've been quiet for too long. This isn't just about the code, Marcus. It's about who we are as a company. Who I am. She turned her computer screen toward him. Charts and graphs showed clear patterns of discrimination across the platform. This is happening on our app, Marcus. The app I built. I can't stay silent anymore. Marcus studied the data, his expression serious. The board won't like this going public. Then they shouldn't have let it happen in the first place. Amara stood up. I need to head home to shower and change before the meeting. I'll see you at the tech hub at 2, Bo. Marcus nodded slowly. I'll be there. And Amara, for what it's worth, I think you're right. Derek scrolled through the day's earnings on his phone. Not bad, but not great either. He needed at least $50 more to cover his part of the electric bill. The past few days have been busy. Ride Connect had introduced a new bonus system. Complete 10 rides in a day, earn an extra $25. Derek was on his 8th ride already. His phone pinged with a new request. He tapped to accept without thinking twice. Name, Amara W. Pickup, Ride Connect Headquarters. Destination, Bay Area Tech Hub. Rating, 4.9 stars. Derek froze. The name and picture looked familiar. Has he driven her? Before? No, he would have remembered. Then it clicked. This was the passenger he'd cancelled on days ago. He almost cancelled again out of habit. But then he noticed something new on the screen. A small alert. This ride will complete your daily bonus, $25 extra. Derek hesitated, then put the car in drive. He needed the money. As he approached the Ride Connect building, a strange feeling settled in his stomach. He'd heard about this place, one of the hottest tech startups in the city. Sleek and modern, the building seemed to be made entirely of glass. It practically screamed success. People like him didn't go into buildings like that. People like him drove people who worked in buildings like that. His passenger notification dinged. Derek pulled up to the curb. Amara checked her watch. She had just enough time to get to the tech hub, review her presentation one last time, and prepare to change everything. She stepped out of the Ride Connect building and checked her phone. Her ride was arriving now, a silver Honda Civic. The car looked familiar. As it pulled up, Amara felt a jolt of recognition. Same car, same driver. For a moment, she considered canceling. There were plenty of other drivers, but something made her reach for the door handle instead. "Hello," she said as she slid into the back seat. "Going to the Bay Area Tech Hub, please." Derek nodded, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Yes, ma'am. Should be about 15 minutes in this traffic." Amara studied his face. He didn't seem to recognize her. Why would he? She was just another face on his app, another black woman in a city full of people. "Do you like driving for Ride Connect?" she asked as they pulled into traffic. Derek shrugged. "It pays the bills, mostly." "Have you been driving long?" "About 6 months. Moved here from Ohio, still getting used to the city." Amara nodded. "It can be overwhelming at first." "Tell me about it," Derek said with a nervous laugh. "Everything costs twice as much as back home, and the people are different. Different." "How?" Derek shifted uncomfortably. "You know, just different cultures and stuff. Back home, everyone was pretty much the same." Amara looked out the window. "That must have been comfortable." "Yeah, I guess it was." Derek glanced at her again in the mirror. "You work at Ride Connect?" "You could say that." "Cool company. Lots of perks, I bet." His tone had changed, becoming more respectful. He seemed to have decided she was important. "You headed to a big meeting?" "Something like that," Amara said. "An important presentation about the future of the company." Derek nodded eagerly. "Well, I'll get you there in plenty of time." The rest of the ride passed in silence. Amara checked her notes while Derek navigated through traffic. The tech hub came into view, a massive complex where the biggest names in Silicon Valley held events and meetings. Derek whistled under his breath. "Fancy place." He pulled up to the entrance and parked. Amara gathered her laptop bag and presentation materials. "Let me help you with those," Derek offered, jumping out to open her door. "Thank you," Amara said, allowing him to take her poster tube. "It's for the main presentation hall." Derek nodded eagerly. "I can carry it in for you. No problem." They walked through the grand entrance together. The security guard at the desk looked up and immediately smiled. "Ms. Washington, they're waiting for you in the Redwood conference room." He stood and came around the desk. "The Ride Connect team arrived a few minutes ago. May I take your materials?" "Thank you, David," Amara said, recognizing the guard from previous events. Derek froze, the poster tube clutched in his hands. "Wait, Washington? Amara Washington?" The security guard gave Derek a strange look. "Yes, Ms. Washington is the co-founder and chief technology officer of Ride Connect." He turned back to Amara. "The board members are all here along with several industry leaders." Derek's face drained of color. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Amara turned to him, taking the poster tube from his now limp hands. "Thank you for your assistance." "Derek, is it?" She looked directly at him. "You seem surprised." I didn't realize." "You're," Derek stammered. "The co-founder of Ride Connect?" Amara finished for him. "Yes, I built the app you use every day." The security guard stepped away discreetly. sensing the tension. Derek's eyes were wide with panic. "Ms. Washington, when I picked you up the other day. When you didn't pick me up, you mean?" Amara said quietly. "When you drove by, saw me waiting in the rain, and canceled." Derek's shoulders slumped. "I'm going to lose my job, aren't I?" Amara studied him for a moment. "Do you know why I'm here today, Derek?" He shook his head. "I'm presenting a new system I designed. It identifies patterns of discrimination on our platform. It would flag drivers who consistently cancel on minority passengers, drivers who make choices based on how someone looks rather than their rating or behavior." Derek stared at the floor. "Look, I don't think of myself as what? Biased? Prejudiced?" Amara's voice remained calm. "Most people don't, but our actions speak louder than our self-image." She checked her watch. "I have 5 minutes before my presentation. Let me ask you something, Derek. Why did you accept my ride request today when you rejected it before?" "The bonus," he admitted after a moment. "I needed the money." Amara nodded. "At least you're honest. Our system detected that when bonuses are involved, cancellation rates even out across all passenger demographics. Interesting, isn't it? When there's a clear financial incentive, suddenly those uncomfortable feelings become less important." Derek looked up, his face red with shame. "Are you going to report me?" "I could," Amara said. "But that wouldn't solve the real problem. Would it? The problem isn't just you, Derek. It's a system that allows these biases to go unchecked. It's companies like mine that pretend discrimination doesn't exist because acknowledging it is uncomfortable." She took a deep breath. "So instead of reporting you, I'm going to ask you to do something else." "Anything," Derek said quickly. "Come to my presentation, listen, learn, then go tell other drivers what you heard." Derek blinked in surprise. "That's it?" "That's everything," Amara said firmly. "Accountability isn't about punishment. It's about growth. Change happens when people who are part of the problem become part of the solution." She handed him a visitor badge. "The presentation starts in 5 minutes. Your choice." Amara turned and walked down the hallway toward the conference room. Behind her, she heard Derek's voice. "Ms. Washington?" She paused. "I'll be there," he said. "And I'm sorry." Amara nodded. "Good. Because this presentation isn't just about changing an algorithm. It's about changing minds." She pushed open the conference room doors. The room was packed with board members, tech journalists, and industry leaders. Marcus stood at the front, relief washing over his face when he saw her. Vanessa Rodriguez sat. In the front row, notebook ready, Amara walked to the podium, her steps confident. She connected her laptop and watched as her presentation appeared on the giant screen behind her. The Fairness Protocol, Creating True Equality in Techas. She looked out at the audience. She spotted Derek slipping into a seat in the back row. Their eyes met briefly. She gave him a small nod. Then Amara took a deep breath and stepped into the spotlight. "Good afternoon. My name is Amara Washington. I'm the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer of Ride Connect. And today, I'm here to tell you a story about invisibility, accountability, and change." "The data doesn't lie," Amara said, her voice steady as she faced the room. She pointed to the screen behind her, where colorful charts showed clear patterns. Black passengers wait 35% longer for rides. Latin passengers experience 28% more cancellations. A murmur ran through the crowd. In the front row, board members shifted uncomfortably. But we didn't build Ride Connect to create more inequality, Amara continued. We built it to make transportation better for everyone. That's why I created the Fairness Protocol. She clicked to the next slide. A complex flowchart appeared, but Amara explained it in simple terms. This system tracks patterns in driver behavior. It notices when drivers regularly cancel on certain types of passengers. It spots areas where wait times are longer for minorities. And most importantly, it fixes these problems in real time. From the back of the room, Derek watched with wide eyes. He had never thought about his actions as part of a larger pattern. Now he couldn't think of anything else. Richard, the lead investor, raised his hand. This is all very concerning, Ms. Washington, but why bring this to a public forum? This could damage our brand. Amara nodded. You're right, it could. But hiding problems doesn't solve them. Transparency can be uncomfortable, but it's necessary for real change. She clicked to the next slide. The Fairness Protocol doesn't just identify bias. It actively works to prevent it. Drivers won't see passenger photos until after accepting rides. Rating systems will be more balanced. Bonus incentives will target underserved neighborhoods. In the front row, Vanessa Rodriguez typed furiously on her laptop. The headline was already forming, Ride Connect tackles tech bias head-on. Marcus stood up and joined Amara at the podium. The board and I fully support Amara's initiative, and we're also announcing that moving forward, Amara Washington will step into her rightful role as the public co-founder and CTO of Ride Connect. Applause filled the room. Amara's eyes widened slightly in surprise. She and Marcus hadn't discussed this part. After the presentation, people crowded around Amara. Hands reached out to shake hers. Business cards appeared from all directions. From across the room, Derek watched. The man who had canceled on her in the rain. The man who had made assumptions based on nothing but a small profile picture. He felt ashamed, but also something else. A desire to do better. When the crowd thinned, he approached her cautiously. Ms. Washington? His voice was quiet. I just wanted to say, that was amazing, and I'm truly sorry for what I did. Amara studied him. Thank you for coming, Derek, and for listening. I never thought about it that way before, he admitted. I never saw the pattern. Most people don't see patterns until someone points them out, Amara said. What matters is what you do once you see them. Derek nodded. I want to do better. I really do. Then be part of the solution, Amara said. She handed him a card. We're starting a driver education program. Your perspective could be valuable. Derek took the card carefully, as if it were made of glass. Thank you for the second chance. Everyone deserves a chance to grow, Amara replied. Even me. 3 months later, Amara stood in her office, looking at the framed magazine cover on her wall. Her own face looked back at her below the headline, The Invisible Innovator Steps into the Light. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Marcus entered, carrying a tablet. The new numbers are in, he said, handing it to her. Cancellation rates are down 62% across all demographics. Wait times are nearly equal in all neighborhoods. Amara smiled as she scrolled through the data. The Fairness Protocol is working. You were right all along, Marcus said. I'm sorry I ever suggested you stay in the background. It was wrong. We all have our blind spots, Amara replied. The important thing is that we're fixing them now. Her phone buzzed. Vanessa Rodriguez was calling. The reporter again? Marcus asked with a small smile. Amara nodded. She's doing a follow-up story on women in tech. Want to interview me for a feature. Of course she does. You're changing the industry. After Marcus left, Amara answered the call. Hello, Vanessa. Amara, have you seen the latest? 3 other rideshare companies are implementing similar fairness systems. You've started a movement. Amara laughed. 1 company at a time? I'm interviewing a group of high school girls next week. They're building apps inspired by your work. Would you be willing to meet them?